So in today's video, I'm not going to be cooking anything, but it is still a very important video to watch. That's because I'm going to be telling you my top 10 essential items I think you need for barbecue. Plus, at the end of the video, I'm going to give you a bonus item that I think is great for barbecue that you probably haven't seen before. So be sure to stick around till the end to see what that is. But without further ado, let's get right into the first of the barbecue essentials, and that is going to be gloves. So under the one gloves category, I do have three different styles of gloves that I think are essential for barbecue. The first one is going to be some nitrile gloves. I just recently started using these GloveWorks gloves, and I am really a big fan of them. So you can see these are a large. I would suggest going with a size lower than what you think you might need because you want these gloves to fit nice and tight. But more importantly is down here, you can see this 6 mil. That's the thickness of the gloves, and that's going to be very important when buying nitrile gloves. You're going to want to buy the thickest ones you can find. I believe 6 mil is the thickest you're going to find on Amazon right now, but just be sure if you're looking for gloves to make sure to get a thicker kind. So that's why I like these. These are nice and durable gloves. They come 100 to a box, so they should last you pretty long. So the nice thing I like about these is you can see right there that they are textured. If you've been barbecuing enough, you know that's pretty important because you're dealing with a lot of greasy food, saucy food, absolutely delicious, but it is very messy. So having the textured gloves is very nice so you don't slip or drop anything. And I haven't had one pair of these gloves rip on me yet. They're actually very, very durable. That's why I suggest this brand here. Now, the reason I suggest nitrile gloves as a necessity is because, as I mentioned earlier, barbecue is very dirty cooking style. In a good way. You have all these sauces, all this fat rendering down. It can get pretty messy. So having a pair of gloves on is nice because once your hands are dirty, you need to go do something pretty quickly. You can just peel those gloves off and you have your clean hands underneath. Also, when I'm doing barbecue, I kind of get in a groove and I like just bang everything out at once. So if I wear a pair of gloves, I can go ahead, trim the meat that I'm trimming, then peel one of my gloves off. Now I have a clean hand, grab my seasoning, go ahead, season that piece of meat, and then bring it out to the smoker, peel that other glove off, and we're good to go. So obviously these may not be a necessity because you can just wash your hands in between these stages, but they are highly useful, and the reason I think they are a necessity is because of this next item under the glove category. What that is some liners for your gloves. Cotton liners work great. I have these neoprene liners, trying these out, and I actually like them pretty good. So they fit a lot tighter than a cotton liner. So you can see right there, these fit very nicely. Then all you're gonna do, take one of your nitrile gloves, put it on over that. Now you have some extra protection under this glove, and this is perfect for handling hot meat on the barbecue. You get a couple of these on, you can go grab the rack of ribs, brisket, whatever you're doing out there with your hands, bring it to where you need it, wrap it up, get it back on the smoker. You won't have to worry about burning your hands. I'm sure there's people out there that don't need the liners, but the liners are very useful. Then you peel the glove off and you still have a nice clean liner, so they last pretty long. But like I said, a cotton liner works great. I do like these, and I've been testing these out for about a month, and I've really been enjoying these. So that is why the nitrile gloves are a necessity, because I believe these liners are a necessity to be working with the hot meat in the barbecue, and you're gonna need the nitrile gloves to go with the liners. Now there's one more thing in the glove category. That's going to be a nice pair of welding gloves. Now you're probably wondering, why do you need welding gloves for barbecue? So if you have an offset smoker, I think these are a necessity because if you're dealing with the fire, you can go ahead with these and just grab a hot log right out of your firebox, move it around to where you want, and they just make maintaining your fire super easy. And if you do have an offset smoker, there's a good chance you are doing welding, and these are some fantastic welding gloves, probably because that's what they're meant for. Now these are Grill Armor gloves. I've been trying these out and they are fantastic for the price. You just can't beat them. They're super durable, heavy duty, and I really like how long the sleeves come up here. This is some great protection. And if you have a charcoal grill, these are also fantastic because you can go ahead, reach around and just mess around with your coals, moving around where you want them. So that is the first of the barbecue essentials, gloves. Let's go ahead and move right on to the next one. That's going to be some fire starters. These are definitely a necessity no matter what kind of smoking you're doing. Unless you have a pellet smoker only, then you probably will not need these. But I hope you have at least a charcoal grill to go with that pellet smoker, because nothing beats some direct heat cooking. Now, I've tried a few different styles of fire starters. I found these to be the best. Not this brand in general, but just this style of fire starter. So this is the style of fire starter I prefer. So I'm sure you've seen different kinds, but this is the one you're gonna want, and this one works the best for me. So you can throw some coals in your charcoal grill or whatever and throw one of these right into the charcoal, get it started that way, or take a couple of these, put them right under your charcoal chimney. It's a great way to get that chimney of charcoal started. But this is the brand that I have been using recently. Their price is the best, but just look for that style and find which one is selling for the best price on Amazon. So we've gone over gloves, we've gone over how to start the fire. Let's move on to some meat prepping tools. Barbecue essential number 3. I'm sure you've seen this in most of my videos. This is a nice big cutting board. You're definitely going to want something like this when you're doing barbecue, because most of the cuts of meat you're going to be doing are pretty large. There's nothing worse than having a small cutting board and your rack of ribs, your brisket is just overhanging the whole thing. To make trimming easier, you want to have a great work surface, and a cutting board like this works perfect. So that is why I put a large cutting board as one of my barbecue essentials, because you need it for prepping the meat as well as slicing it up after it's finished. Speaking of slicing, that brings me to barbecue essential number 4. That's going to be some knives. Now, I'm assuming you already have a chef's knife at your house, because you're gonna need one of those to prep all your food. But sticking with barbecue, these 2 knives are essential to me. We'll start off with this semi-stiff boning knife from Victorinox. This is my favorite knife and the one that I would have to have out of all of them. This is my go-to trimming knife for absolutely everything. It's also great for boning if you are deboning chickens or whatever. And the best thing about these is how cheap they are, and they stay nice and sharp. You just get one of those stick sharpeners and you can give it a sharpen every time before you use it. This thing will be razor sharp. And I really like it because, say after a year, it's not as sharp as it was, still plenty sharp. You can just go out and pick up another one because of how cheap these are. But I highly suggest picking up one of these semi-stiff boning knives. It will make your trimming so much easier if you're not using one of these. Now, the next knife is a big serrated knife. This is great because I use it to cut up almost all the barbecue when it's finished. Something like a brisket, a rack of ribs, those are gonna be super tender. So you gotta be careful if you have a straight edge slicing knife. You gotta make sure it's super sharp or it's just gonna pull apart that meat. That's why this serrated knife is perfect. And if you see anyone slicing briskets up professionally, you will most likely see them using one of these. Again, a nice cheap knife. You don't have to spend a lot of money on it. These are both commercial knives. This is the Stahl brand. You can pick this up at a restaurant store, or there are similar ones on Amazon. I will have the links to those. I believe there's a Dexter knife that is very similar to this. Highly suggest picking it up. Again, the price is cheap. Let's go ahead and move right ahead to barbecue essential number 5. That's gonna be the ever so popular beef tallow. Now, obviously you can make yourself. I highly suggest doing that. And I'm hoping to have some sort of a video coming out soon to show you the process of taking leftover brisket fat, turning it into some delicious tallow. I found that the homemade tallow is much better than this Wagyu beef tallow. Stuff is great, don't get me wrong, but the homemade beef tallow just has a better flavor. But this stuff is an essential for me because I'm always using it to wrap up my meat. Anytime I'm cooking beef low and slow, I'm gonna end up wrapping it with some beef tallow to maintain that moisture in there. Plus, this stuff is fantastic to cook with as well. But if you're doing brisket and you're not wrapping or resting with some tallow, you gotta give it a try because it will bring your brisket to a new level. And that is why I have this as a barbecue essential. Speaking of wrapping, that's going to bring me to barbecue essential number 6. Here we have some heavy duty aluminum foil. You're gonna wanna go with the heavy duty because when you're wrapping ribs and things with bones, you don't want the aluminum foil to get punctured. That's why the heavy duty is the way to go. Plus, you're going to get a nice wide roll if you buy a heavy duty brand aluminum foil. And that's what you're gonna need for things like brisket and pork butt. Now, the aluminum foil is a necessity because you're always wrapping up items in barbecue, whether it's to break through a stall or to rest a piece of meat, you're going to need this. And that is why it is an essential for my barbecue. Now, barbecue essential number 7, very similar to aluminum foil. That's gonna be some butcher paper. Now this is the Meat Hugger brand butcher paper you can pick up on Amazon. This is by far the best butcher paper I've used. Very heavy duty, great for wrapping, and it comes in 2 different sizes. I highly suggest you get the wide version of their butcher paper. This is so you won't have to use 2 separate sheets to wrap up a large brisket. I have cooked some big briskets, and this paper has been plenty wide for everything. Now whenever I'm wrapping up barbecue, I'm one to always use butcher paper. Even if I want to use foil, I'll wrap the meat in butcher paper first. I just really like how the end result comes out on a piece of meat when it's wrapped in paper. So I'm always using this stuff for everything, and that's why it is one of my essentials. Essential number 8 is going to be a spritz bottle. Pretty simple, but it's a necessity. Now I prefer these Zepp bottles. You can pick these up at the hardware store for pretty cheap, or you can find them on Amazon. They hold a good amount of liquid, and I like the spray pattern, but the most important thing is if you buy a cheap spritz bottle, the heads on these things break easily. These will last you a long time. Now, if you do enough barbecue, you know you're always going out there and spritzing your meat. The big debate is, what are you spritzing your barbecue with? But either way, you're gonna need a nice spritz bottle. I've seen some of those pump sprayers that people use. You really don't need that unless you're doing a ton of barbecue. So I highly suggest just getting one of these little hand pump spritzers. And if you wanna know what I use for a spritz, it's a 50-50 mix of white vinegar and water. The spritz really doesn't do much. You just need some sort of a liquid. The flavor doesn't really get imparted on the meat at all, at least in my experience. So I like to just use some water and vinegar. I have noticed that the vinegar tends to make the meat a little more tender. Now, barbecue essential number 9, I'm sure you've been waiting for it, is an instant read thermometer. This is probably one of the most important items that you need for barbecue because you're checking temperatures so often to see how your meat is coming along. Now, the other reason you want to instant read is because this probe here is great for checking your tenderness of meat. Now, you don't have to go ahead and break the bank for an instant read thermometer. You can buy a cheap brand off Amazon or wherever, and I'm sure it'll work fine. Durability may be an issue. It may not last too long. But if you want my suggestion on an instant read thermometer that's not going to really cost too much money, I would look out for one of these classic thermopens. If you go on ThermoWorks website, you can sign up for email alerts and they're going to let you know of sales. And you can probably pick one of these up for around $45 when they're on sale. And it's a great, durable, instant read thermometer. You'll always see these being used in commercial settings. Now, if price isn't an issue for you, you can look for one of their Thermopen ones. That is their nice instant read thermometer. They also have one that has an infrared on the bottom, which I really like. But classic Thermopen, you can't go wrong with this, and it should last you a long, long time. But an instant read thermometer is my number 9 barbecue essential. So that leaves us with my last barbecue essential. It's going to be a meat grinder. Now, if you have a wife with a KitchenAid, I highly suggest buying their metal meat grinder attachment. This thing works great. That KitchenAid has a strong motor. Now, the reason I say a meat grinder is a barbecue essential is because you're going to be dealing with a lot of trimmings if you're doing barbecue. Whether it's pork or beef, you're gonna have some leftover trim and you don't want to go ahead and just throw that out. And if you have a meat grinder, it's going to allow you to trim something like a brisket more than you would usually like to if you didn't have a reason to use the trim. So you'll be more willing to cut off a piece of that brisket because you know it's going to be used for some delicious ground meat. Now, if you haven't took your brisket leftovers and ground it down to some meat and made some smash burgers, you are missing out. Now, another reason you're going to need a meat grinder is because once you get deep into the barbecue, you're going to want to make some sausage. And to make sausage the correct way, you're going to want to grind your own stuffing mixture. And you're not going to be able to do that without a proper meat grinder. So that's why I have this as one of my barbecue essentials, because I couldn't do what I need to do without one of these. And I'll tell you what, some homemade ground meat or sausage is absolutely fantastic. So be sure to get yourselves a nice meat grinder. Now, I said I'd have a bonus item at the end of this video. It's not an essential, but it is a great product that I love to use for barbecue. That is going to be this Zippo branded miniature blower. So this runs off of batteries, and it basically is a little leaf blower kind of thing. So you just push the button, blows a little bit of air out, not too much, but just enough for getting a fire started. If you have an offset smoker and you need to get that fire going, you can take this and just go ahead right in there. It's going to get this fire going pretty fast, and that's why I wanted to tell you guys about this. Not expensive, but it is great for getting those charcoal fires or offset smoker fires going in a fast amount of time. That's why I wanted to give you guys this little bonus item, but I appreciate you watching this video, and I'm going to put a link to everything that I talked about in this video down below. So if you're interested in purchasing any of this, you can just go right down in the description and check them out. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a like. And if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe right over here. And if you want to see one of my barbecue cooking videos, be sure to check this out right over here. But most importantly, guys, get out there and smoke something good.